Welcome back to the CODESHO podcast, everybody. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about WWDC. It just happened this week. And I guess let's just address the elephant in the room because it seems like everything everybody wants to talk about. It seems a lot like Android.
Yeah. I don't know why that's a bad thing, though.
I don't either. It seems like you've said this past week, it's like they are focusing on catching up with the things that Android was doing. It seems like Apple's been innovating a lot over the last few years. It does seem like maybe they're out of ideas.
So here's the hard thing. I didn't come up with this. Somebody else had suggested this idea that obviously when a company is innovating, they're going to come out with those most innovative ideas first. And I don't know. Again, it's obviously debatable, but I think the world, or let's say America has decided that Apple is better for whatever reason. So their innovation worked, right? And then now they said, well, when you're out of innovative ideas, then you kind of play catch up.
Yeah. There's something to be said, though, about every time that they do take on some feature that Android already did, it does seem like they do it better. I'm sorry.
I'm going to talk about that. I agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like Android maybe a lot of times is first to market with a lot of these mobile OS features, but I don't know, just in general, it seems like when Apple does it, they do it better. Like one of the first ones here.
Wait, real quick, because
Sure.
I want to talk about that innovation. Because I said this before too. We don't know that they're out of ideas. Like so whoever said that, like whoever came up with that idea, like when a company is out of ideas, that was just somebody else's like theory or whatever. But we don't know that they're out of ideas. They might just be working on ideas that take an extra cycle. Like they're working on cooler stuff that just isn't done. So in the meantime,
Yeah, that's true. I do have concerns, though, about the mobile market because I would say in general, people seem happy with their phones. It does seem like software is the way to improve them as opposed to hardware. Mm-hmm. But I hear all the time from people just saying like they're getting kind of tired of the way the iPhone looks, the way the hardware works. Like they want some like fundamental change to the model, because I mean, if you think about it, that's kind of what happened for many years. When the cell phone first came out, it was pretty limited, pretty much just made phone calls, and then they added screens to them, and that was really cool. And then they started adding web capability to them. That was really cool. Then they got a little bit smarter apps, and they added Bluetooth, and they added NFC, and these are all like, some of them are they intertwine with software, but in general, these are hardware improvements. Adding a screen, adding Bluetooth, adding NFC,
even that the first, like the announcement of the iPhone, he was like, oh, you got a camera, you got an MP3 player, you got a phone. Let's merge them all together. That's obviously a hardware.
Yeah, so where are they going to go next? Like, I think the next obvious hardware improvement is the higher refresh rate displays. That's going to be really cool, and I think people are waiting for that. But like I don't know if that's like a fundamental difference to the way that you interact with your phone, which is what Apple and all these phone companies have prided themselves on. I mean, at least kudos to like Samsung for trying. I think that they came out with that like foldable tablet phone.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think that's what the market's looking for.
Yeah.
But props to you for trying.
Yeah.
Like they're trying to come out with that next hardware thing. So
I mean, they tried it with Watch, and like Apple is still pushing Apple Watch, and like the interactions with fitness. That's a hardware issue, but
that's true. AirPods,
yeah. But yeah, I think the general feeling, it's weird because I don't know what they would do next, and I'm pretty happy. Maybe I'm just not innovative, like, and that's also fine. But like, I understand that people want that next thing. Like, iPhone changed the world. Apple iPad was like the next change. It's iPod. iPod changed the world. Yeah. Then iPhone, and then iPad, and it's like those. I mean, maybe Steve Jobs. If you read that Steve Jobs biography, which I really recommend, like it does seem kind of like a genius. I'm not trying to be like some cult Steve Jobs fanboy. Maybe the author is just also really good, which he is. But like some of it is maybe he was a genius. Again, maybe it was just there was so many new technologies, and that was just the perfect time for it.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't want to say his job was not easy at all, but I can see how it was easy to look at the phone that existed whenever he made the iPhone and be like, oh yeah, I can make that better. Mm-hmm. Because I mean, essentially the goal, like the rush was, hey, we have computers. These are full-size devices. They're bulky. I mean, we still use them today, but in general, they're really bulky. And there's a lot of that technology that we can bring into a portable device. And that was his job. And I'm not saying that his job was easy. He was a master at what he did. And he innovated a lot of technology that a lot of other people couldn't do. But the job of getting closer and closer to a phone being like a computer, that's a pretty clear goal.
Well, the thing is, again, this is... Maybe we're going to be talking about Steve Jobs all day. But like in that book, I think Isaac Walters is the author. And so he did a biography on like some other famous people like Einstein and Benjamin Franklin. And so he's known for being pretty thorough and not necessarily like making stuff up. And so one of the things that Steve Jobs wanted or predicted or whatever was he basically predicted the iPad back in the 80s or something like that, 70s. I think he went into a meeting and like they weren't sure if they were going to get investors, and he like threw his, maybe I'm mixing up stories, but like he threw his little folder. It goes like, imagine that as a computer or something like that. Or I don't know. He had something in the book where he didn't just want a laptop. He wanted a piece of paper, like Jetsons style. I don't know if you watch Jetsons.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like he wanted that, and he was imagining that back in the 70s, or I forget the exact date, but like a long time ago. Maybe a lot of people were, but I wasn't.
Yeah. The cool thing about him is that there's a lot of people that talk about leadership. We talk about leadership a lot. And there's like, they say like to be a good leader, you need to be reasonable with your employees. You need to be patient. You need to be understanding. I know you know where I'm going with this, but like the funny thing is there's another group of people that say like in general that is good leadership. If you're running the average company, that's how you need to be. Or more importantly, maybe if you're not like the leader of the whole company, but if you're just a manager at a company, that is how you need to be. People are people. You have to be patient. You have to be understanding. But the top of the top, and you've talked about this before, don't try to be this person. Yeah. You're not Steve Jobs. Like a lot of people are not going to be Steve Jobs. If you are, great. But
just because it worked for Steve Jobs doesn't mean it's going to work for you.
Yeah.
So
but he was so unreasonable. Yeah. And that was what got him the success, was like, okay, I want to turn a folder into an iPad, and like, we're going to do it.
Well, he was, you're definitely right. But also he got kicked out of his own company.
He did. Well, he came back in though.
He did. Yeah. So but he even says that he grew a lot. He learned a lot at Next. He had to, maybe he got humbled a little bit. But so related to what you were saying, I don't remember. I heard Jocko say that same thing, like you're not Steve Jobs, but somebody else was talking about that same concept, and I don't know if they were referencing Steve Jobs, but they were saying, like, I think they were talking about fighting, and it's like if you're going to be in a street fight. And you're thinking about throwing a kick, ask yourself one question: are you Bruce Lee? And if the answer is no, then don't throw. I almost swore. Then don't throw a kick. Right? Like you're not going to be an expert. So
yeah, not everybody's like him. I do wonder though. Sometimes it seems like people lately are really upset with Apple, and I just wonder. Is it because he's gone? Is it because there really is a lack of ideas in the world? Would he have brought those ideas into the world? Would he be happy with where Apple was at right now? Apple's definitely making a lot of innovation. It doesn't seem like the same type of innovation that Steve Jobs made.
Yeah.
Everything that he did was just like, dang, like that, couldn't have seen that coming. But now when we see WWDC this year, we're like, okay, yeah, these features are exciting. We're happy to see them. They were kind of a long time coming, but nobody's surprised by them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nobody's like, dang, I didn't know that I needed that or anything. It was just like, yeah, we've seen this stuff before. This is just new to the iOS platform. So
maybe it is like there's this idea. I don't know if it's controversial or not, but like in the theory of evolution, there is like different kind of like branches or like ideas that people like have for how evolution happens. Is it really gradual? There's this other one that's called punctuated equilibrium. So basically, like there will be these spikes of change, and then it'll be like flat for a while, right? Or so maybe it's like a spike up, more like stairs. And so maybe that's what technology, like maybe that's what was needed. And it was just during that time. Obviously, we have seen a whole bunch of new technologies over the last 20 years, or whatever. But maybe it was just, obviously it would still take somebody smart And there was a whole team. Johnny Ive, that was his name, right? Johnny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Johnny Ives, yeah,
Johnny Ives. There was smart people, and if you read the book, the author says like Steve Jobs would also he would not necessarily say he's wrong, but he would pick the other person's idea a lot, but then he would like make it his own. But yeah, so maybe that the time of like the iPhone, iPad, iPod stuff, maybe that was like one of the punctuated times. And maybe it will happen again, not necessarily with Apple, maybe some other company, but
yeah, maybe we're due for that soon. Maybe, I don't know. See, I sometimes wonder. I haven't been on the world for an exceptionally long time or anything, but it does seem like we do live in a time where people are less impressed. It takes a lot more to impress people now, and that might just be because of the tech boom. Just
because
like,
we all walk around with supercomputers in our pocket.
Seriously, like think about where we were at just 100 years ago. Dang, like what a freaking...
When I was a kid, we played consoles that weren't connected to the internet.
Yeah.
The controllers required a wire.
I remember just playing a PlayStation 2 with my buddies, and
that was awesome.
That was a really cool console. I think it was the best selling console of all time. But anyways, we used to play that, and I remember one day, and by the way, this is like 10 years ago or less, maybe. I don't even know. Maybe 10 or 11, 12, I don't know, whatever. Anyways, it's about 10 years ago. And I remember my buddy, his family had a little bit more money than everybody else in the neighborhood, and they had like fast internet, and they actually hooked his PlayStation up to the internet. And I remember thinking like, holy crap, like you're going to play with other people. Yeah. And like, and people think like nowadays you're like, maybe you think I'm being ridiculous, but like really, if you rewind 10 years ago, like that wasn't normal.
That wasn't a thing.
And now everybody's so connected. And not only was that kind of abnormal, but people still had flip phones. Like the iPhone just got released. I mean, I guess it was about that time ago. It was about 10 years ago, 10 or 11 years ago. But anyways, right before that, we were not nearly as connected as we are now. I mean, at least we had the internet and people emailed each other. But like, I can't think of anybody that I know that I couldn't get a hold of like that now. Like, and it would not be painful. Finding somebody would be crazy easy. And I just think because of that, because of these great leaps in technology, people are just not impressed. But maybe we should just take a look around and realize all that has happened in the 5 years, how connected we are to everything, whether that's people or ordering food or whatever, businesses that we want to buy things from. Like, it is crazy connected.
Yeah. We were at work the other day, and you ordered those burritos or whatever, like the Mexican food.
Mm-hmm.
Just, I mean, I know that exists, but like we hardly had to get up.
Yeah.
You paid, somebody brought it to us. You know, they knocked on the door and we had to get it, but that's it.
Yeah.
That's cool.
By the way, get it together, Cafe Rio. They forgot my dressing.
Yeah, that was...
anyways, yeah, but I don't know. Let's talk a little bit about the features that were in WWDC that they talked about. So I want to kind of preface this by saying, we already kind of said this a little bit, but we've been watching a lot of YouTubers and stuff lately talk about how disappointed they are with this WWDC. And it seems like the common theme here is that these people that are ragging on it a lot, they are Android users. And I think that they're not impressed because they've had it. And it's weird, like the next most controversial thing to politics is like Apple versus Android. Like everybody's got such an opinion over it.
Yeah, I think... Actually, I'm curious. I am kind of curious. What's your opinion? I guess not what's a better phone. Have you ever used an Android?
Yeah, I had Android for many years.
Yeah. So the thing is, my whole time in Korea, I had an Android phone. Before that, like in Singapore, did I have one in America? But in Singapore, I had an iPhone. In Korea, I just used because they have like Samsung phones. So I just tried that out. We moved back here for 3 years. I had an iPhone, and now I switched back to Android. Only because I'm an Android developer. So that's my history.
Yeah.
I do think that Apple phones are better.
Yeah. I think
not the cameras apparently. My wife loves the cameras on I mean we didn't have like the iPhone. We had iPhone 7.
Mm-hmm.
But even at the time we got the iPhone 7, she said that the camera wasn't as good as whatever we had in Korea.
It does seem like Android, or it's not really Android. People say that a lot. It's really Samsung. Samsung is dominating the camera game on mobile phones. Yeah. But this is a tough one because as a software developer, I have a profound respect for both of them. Mm-hmm. I know that's not the fun answer. That's not the controversial answer. But I I have an iPhone, and I probably will for the foreseeable future. I don't think anything's going to change me anytime soon. I had Android for a long time. I used to be the one that told everybody, like, Android's more customizable. You could do more with it. You can customize it to your liking, whatever. And also, it seems like the app developers have a lot more freedom on Google to, like, I mean, for sure, like, on Android, you were able to create like custom keyboards long before that was ever available on iOS. And that was like a big change in iOS once they did start allowing stuff like that. So just always you've been able to have a little bit more control over everything about it.
Yeah.
But
that comes with a cost. Now we're not even talking. Now we're not even talking about WWDC. Because we talked about this. Every app developer, because I've done development on both, and so have you. Every app developer, if you're working on something, if you're smart about how you go about this, you're going to build like a keyboard avoiding text view, right? You're going to update your text view so that, or like you're like build something reusable so that your text view will automatically avoid that keyboard.
Yeah.
Right. And it's super easy on iPhone. Super easy. I mean, like, it's not something you're going to do your first day of programming, but like it's in the end, that's definitely not the most complicated thing in here. Now, mine isn't the most complicated either, but mine breaks a lot. Yeah. And that's because you just don't know the size of the keyboard. You can't know it to any kind of like predictable extent. And like it's worked on all the phones I've used, but it doesn't work on all the simulators I've used.
Yeah. And not only that, like that's a good point that app developers don't know what phones people are going to be using, but the developers of the Android operating system also don't know what new phones are going to come to the market.
They don't even know. That's the thing. Android is just an operating system that could go anywhere. Right? Yeah. So it might be going on a device with a keyboard.
Yeah.
Like with like a hardware keyboard. Mm-hmm. So it could be for like a kiosk or something. So like they just I don't know why they do it this way, but the tools available are just more general. And in one of those cases, it just sucks. The stuff you can do with the keyboard on iOS is nice. It's nice.
I don't know. It's just like they tried to create a platform that it doesn't care what hardware you use, and it's also insanely flexible and universal. I mean, I will say, like, it works really well for what it does. I mean, you could run it on a TV. You could run it on an iPhone or an iPhone. You
might be able to.
Yeah. I mean, you could run it on anything. And so it's like, that's really cool. But I mean, it's kind of like, jack of all trades, master of none. That's kind of like but it is really good. I don't want to say it's master of none. There are things that Android does really, really well. And I mean, people obviously like it. It's, you know what I mean? Like people obviously want to have an Android phone. So it's hard for me to say like, well, iOS is just better. To me, as a software engineer, I do feel like Apple cares a little bit more about privacy than Google does. That's actually almost undisputable. Google's a data company, bottom line.
That's it.
Like Apple's not.
We talk about that all the time. Who's the customer and who's the product?
Yes.
Yeah. So for Apple, they want us to buy their hardware and their software, I guess. Mostly it's just hardware that comes prepackaged. Google, they give out their stuff for free because we are the product.
Yeah.
So like that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, some people choose to not use. You can use like DuckDuckGo instead of Google. Yeah. Like their search engine is good.
I think they're also a little bit less transparent with their users about the data that they're collecting. And by the way, this is a problem across the board. Like this is not just Google.
Yeah.
But Google is not doing anything to improve the situation. They are collecting all sorts of data that people don't know about. Like what I tell people is there's a lot of data that your phone, if you have an Android phone, is collecting that you're unaware of. And if Google were to tell you or ask you for permission to do that, no way you'd give it to them. No way. Like no way that you'd get like if they said we're collecting where you work, like we're going to watch your location, we're going to analyze your behaviors and decide where your home is and where you work based on your GPS location, you'd be like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
No way. But they're doing this to all sorts of people.
Yeah. Google Maps. Yeah. Well, Google Maps does that.
Yeah.
On Apple as well, by the way.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean,
but maybe maybe Apple isn't sharing it with other people. I don't know. But for example.
And I mean, Google controls the operating system, so there might be things that Apple isn't letting Google do that they can get away with on their operating system. Yeah. But a good example of this is you and I worked on an app, and we integrated Firebase with it and added analytics to it. And there were certain properties that we were tracking. They were mostly anonymous properties like height and weight and stuff. It wasn't really tied to an individual person. Nor was Google's analytics either. I'll give them that. The stuff that we did see was anonymous, but the amount of data that we had on users on Android is insane compared to iOS.
It's more than we just normally collect. And like, so, like there's more, there's typically on an app in America anyway, you're going to have more iOS users than Android users. But we had complete like profiles, whatever the Firebase Analytics profile was of a person. We had more Android profiles than iOS, even though we had overall more iOS users because it's opt-in versus opt-out.
Much, much higher. And this is proof that Google's customer is not the user of the Android phone. Their customer was us.
Yeah.
Their customer is the company that is getting all of the access to that data.
And we said the same thing. Like, I'm sure that's why Firebase is free. Like, Firebase is pretty cool. They give us a lot of analytics. They give us push notifications. But that also means that maybe they're, like, they know the behavior of our app users or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, just all the data they have is better. But I don't know if it's a false sense of security, but Apple does seem like lately they're focusing a whole lot more on privacy than they ever have before. Mm-hmm. And, like, every time that they have a keynote, they're constantly talking about, well, we did this so that you've got privacy here and that these developers are going to have to ask you for permission to this. Apple was the first one to kind of spearhead the whole cookie tracking thing on Safari.
Oh, yeah.
That was really cool. And then now what they did in this WWDC was they said with apps and I believe websites, I think it's both of them, they're going to have basically the equivalent of a nutrition facts. They want to create this like standardized template for showing people what privacy settings are associated with a particular website or a particular app. Basically, what data is this person collecting on you?
Yeah.
And that's really cool. Like, I mean, I don't know if it actually, like, the cookie tracking thing on Safari has a major impact because immediately it starts helping all sorts of people without them having to do anything. This nutrition fact style thing, it's cool. It's a little bit more... it's more to just create transparency between the user and the developer. It's not actually going to do anything for you. You just have to look at it and decide if this is what you want to use. But that's a huge step forward because right now, I think we've talked about this a lot too. I definitely have always thought about this, that developers right now, we're kind of in the wild west of the programming era, of the software era, where developers are not held accountable very much. They can kind of track whatever they want and kind of do whatever they want. Yeah. And if it's hidden in the code, people don't know.
And it's up to the user. Like we worked with somebody as well who, I don't know if he ever told you this, but he has stuff on his phone that supposedly like blocks. Like it's like third-party apps. It supposedly like blocks or like detects information that's being sent. I don't know how accurate it works, but like he's obviously, he said he's the type of user who's interested in that.
Yeah.
But like obviously that's not everybody and that's not the default.
I don't know that I agree that it's not for, I think that it's not for everybody in the sense that some people are just blissfully ignorant about what's going
that's
on.
What I mean, yeah.
But I think that there is a market for this. For sure, I care about this a lot.
So, and I think that's where, again, like where's the incentive, right? Google has the incentive. Facebook has the incentive. Of course, they're giving us out free stuff, right? So like, oh, can we really trust Apple? Well, maybe not. They're still just a big company. But the incentive is for us to buy their phones, for us to use their browser. Can you use Safari on Windows?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I wasn't even sure. Like, I wasn't sure if that was like a clever ploy to say we have the most secure browser, but you have to buy a Mac. So that's the thing is, I understand maybe we can't trust a big corporation like Apple, but where is their incentive? If their incentive is to give us more money, or like for us to give them more money, that could be reasonable. They might share it amongst themselves, but like Google, we definitely know Google's incentive. Google's incentive is to collect our information and share it with advertisers.
It's interesting that the big players right now in this whole game of collecting data, actually just most of the big tech companies right now are data companies, including Facebook and Google. And I mean, that's their goal. Also, the end customer of Facebook is not the person on Facebook, despite what it might seem like.
I've never given Facebook any of my money.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
Nobody does.
Nobody does. That's what I'm saying. Nobody does.
But for those that don't know, I'm sure everybody does, but obviously advertising is where Facebook makes all their money, and it is just insane how much money they're pumping through that. And the crazy thing is they've acquired such a user base now that like there's no stopping them. They just have a constant flow of money. And it's free. It's just like, I mean, Facebook doesn't even really have to get their name out there anymore. They're not even trying to advertise themselves all that much. Everybody knows Facebook. But anyways, Apple actually, it's funny because they or at one point they were the first $1 trillion company. So like they obviously are doing something right. People obviously do care about what they're offering. Privacy is I just think it's cool that if you're going to have some device in your pocket that is probably the most personal thing to you, I would rather it be produced by a company who's doesn't have an incentive to collect my data and sell it to other people.
This connects to obviously other. I mean, it connects to one of the features. I wasn't expecting to talk about it first, but obviously the way that people have their phones right now, they do collect credit card. Like you can store like what do they call it? Apple Wallet, or I mean obviously you can pay with Apple Pay. Or like just like your thumbprint or whatever, but also Apple Wallet, so that you don't have to keep all of your apps or keep all of your cards in your wallet, right? So they probably know if I don't use that feature, but maybe I never used Apple Wallet, but let's say you do. They probably know, Apple or Google knows that with pretty good certainty, if this is like a Visa card. Like a Discover card or whatever. Like I don't know if they can know if it's specifically like a Chase card. They might be able to. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think the phone or the credit card, like the numbers will tell you if it's a Discover, like a JB or whatever, or a Visa. Like there's like an algorithm. And
they do know. I don't know how though. That's a good point. I never thought about that. And I know they know because whenever you add a card to your Apple Wallet, it's really impressive actually. A lot of times you get a view of the card.
Yeah, no.
You never like took a picture of it or anything, but like if I put in my Chase Sapphire card,
they do know.
It'll have a picture of a Chase Sapphire card, a digital card in your wallet.
So the way credit cards work, because I implemented the feature to show like if it's a Visa or whatever. I did that before.
Yeah.
And so it's like there's basically like number blocks. Like Visa always starts with like 4 or like something like that, right? And so I wonder if Visa gives specific number blocks for like Visa Sapphire or whatever, Chase Sapphire.
They must, yeah.
Yeah, it could be. I don't know.
Yeah.
Interesting. that is also just. Oh, anyway.
Yeah, that was.
Okay, so where that was going was the new feature is the car keys.
Yes.
So like. Your credit cards are like your credit card and your bank account is already stored in your phone. Now your car will be too.
Yep. And by the way, this is kind of back. I know I'm reversing a little bit, but Apple also has that Apple Card now, so you can have a card. I mean, I think it's through Goldman Sachs technically, but it's an Apple Card.
Yeah.
The whole point here is that Apple, with your car keys, with your Apple Wallet, whatever it is, Apple knows a lot about you. I mean, really, they do. Yeah. They know what car you drive. They probably know how much money you make. They probably know. I mean, if you have a credit card with them, they for sure do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they know who you bank with. They know all sorts of stuff. And again, like, I don't want to keep dwelling on this point, but if there's going to be a company that knows that much about me, in general, I don't even like that idea at all.
Yeah.
But they do take privacy. I mean, there's been like times even in the past when the FBI tried to like get data from Apple. And I actually liked their response because I think they told the FBI, they were like, hey, we're not going to give you this data. And it's really not even because we don't want to, we can't.
Yeah.
I think they actually said like bring your top programmers or hackers, and if they want to try to get this data, they can. But like it's all encrypted.
If it's encrypted, I mean somebody might be able to do it. Like, but it's also probably not going to be me.
Yeah, and I mean you're up against the top engineers in the world, the top encrypting engineers in the world.
Those people, yeah. Like for a for-profit company like Apple. They're going to find the best.
Yep.
Like, they're not finding just, like, Joe Schmo. Like, I read a book on, like, cryptography or whatever one time.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that they take this really seriously. Again, I hope I'm wrong, or I hope I'm not wrong. I hope it's not a false sense of security that you get by being with Apple, but I don't know. I wonder if there's something to be said about there may be like a large group of the population that just doesn't really care about this, and maybe it's like not a problem. I mean, I don't think that anybody likes the idea of a company collecting a bunch of data on them, but I know that I have heard people that are like, well, what are they going to do with it? What are they going to like?
So here was my attitude. I don't know how much it has changed. It is different. But here was my attitude years ago. I remember I was using MySpace, and my buddy was also using MySpace, and he was like, hey, I think they're like looking at your data and giving you like ads. And I go, yeah. I even knew it back then. I was like, yeah, so? I go, it's like who cares? There's nothing. They can't do anything. I guess that's what it was. It's like they can't do anything with it. And it was just like, I guess I'd rather get ads that catered to me, and I get to use this platform for free. I was like, when was MySpace around? Those
also 10 plus years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was before I was a programmer. So yeah, it was like that would have been like 17 years ago.
Yeah,
the world has changed since then. And so that's fair. So maybe my attitude is different about it, because I also couldn't imagine because what were they collecting? MySpace also had like nothing. You didn't put stuff on it. Yeah. These days you like everything. Like you like Batman, or you like this author or whatever on Facebook, and so it's different. I don't like doing that, by the way, because for exactly that. It's like, why does the world need to know that I like Batman? I guess now they do.
Yeah, and it's crazy because actually I've read some articles of people talking about this too, and this is all supposed to be anonymous. Like in general, they pitch it that way, and I think in general it is anonymous. But there's been people, even like really good engineers that have worked on this technology, that basically say, it's child's play at the end of the day to target or to kind of triangulate someone's data to who they actually are. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Enough about that. Enough about the whole privacy thing. Probably the more interesting thing anyways is what's new in iOS and all that. So yes, car keys, super cool. I love CarPlay. I love the idea of having everything about my car associated with my phone. That's pretty neat. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I totally dig it. And speaking of, CarPlay got a small but really cool update. This is really not a big deal. Backgrounds. Do you remember the first iPhone that came out, no backgrounds, black? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And then when you could add a background, it was like, whoa, so nice. I have that feeling right now about CarPlay. I'm so excited. Dumb feature. Don't know why it wasn't there before.
It is. Yeah, that is weird.
But why wasn't it on the original iPhone?
Because they were having a race against the clock. Like there was a bunch of stuff that you couldn't do. You couldn't, on iPhone 1, you couldn't take your phone, like have your keyboard up and turn it into like landscape.
Yeah.
And the keyboard wouldn't, like it wouldn't automatically switch. It just wouldn't. And it was like, it's probably not a super difficult feature, but it's also not top of the list. It's not going to hold us up.
I'm sure there is a good reason why they didn't do that. One sounds more reasonable.
Technical or whatever.
Yeah, but like the background, man, like why?
Yeah,
come on. Like you added a background to the lock screen. I'm sure there's a good reason why. I'm sure I've been in situations like this before. I love these conversations at work and at my previous jobs when somebody be like, why can't you do that? Like it seems so easy. And you're like, I know it seems so easy, but there's this one little thing that's I can't do that because of, so that's probably why. Now, that being said, there's no reason why they couldn't have put background. We're in 2020 and Apple is $1 trillion company. When CarPlay came out, you could have put backgrounds on it.
They have a background. They're currently displaying a background.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. They were. So it's like wherever you're pulling that background from, additionally pull it from a different spot.
Yeah.
Like it's just, it seems.
Whatever. It'll be cool though, because now like your car can match the theme. My car's like all red theme. I'm excited to have a red background. Anyways, that's CarPlay. Actually, so it seems like BMW's really taken the reins here on working with Apple to get all this stuff done. So what I think is really cool is that BMW, I think, is the first car manufacturer that is going, for sure they're going to adopt these keys, which is really cool. They were also the first one to have like native, I think I'm right about this. I think they were the first one to like natively support wireless CarPlay in their cars, which is really cool. They've also got wireless chargers in their cars. Like they are for sure like spearheading that. And the cool thing is Apple's been working with them on all of this stuff, and CarPlay, this was last WWDC. This isn't new news, but I am excited to see where it goes because I don't think that there's any car manufacturer that has like really, I don't even think BMW's implemented this yet, but they started supporting multi-screen CarPlay with different resolutions. And so basically the idea is that like if you have CarPlay connected, you could have like your media center right here with your music and or podcast or whatever. And then inside your dash, you've got like your Apple Maps maybe or something between your speedometer.
Whoa, that would be cool.
That would be so cool. That would be
really cool.
I'm just thinking like the future of actually we were talking about like what's the new innovation. This stuff really excites me. Like tapping into the car industry.
Well, because actually that does make sense because cars have been cars, and like they work on of course it is kind of like a hardware versus and like style thing. Like those are the things that you're paying for, but like they're not smart cars. Like the radio is getting better. Like I don't have an Apple Play in my car, but I bet it would be. Well, I don't have an iPhone right now, but it would be sweet. I do think it would be sweet. So yeah, maybe this is the thing where it's like everything's integrated.
It is super cool, especially if we start focusing on things like cars that are so deeply integrated into our lives. Like one of the coolest things to me, this is like such a dumb one, but I love that whenever I come home, since I have Siri attached to my CarPlay, I don't want to say her name, but hey, open the garage, and she'll just like do it. And actually it's even cooler because through the home app, I think you can also set it up so that as I'm pulling into my driveway, if I've been away, it'll just automatically open the garage because I'm in proximity.
That's cool.
Really cool. Yeah. This is like the future of it for me. And the car thing is really cool because we spend so much time in our cars, at least a lot of us do. So
I do know that people are like the idea of the innovation, maybe it isn't in your pocket, but like smart homes or smart cars.
I'm ready to see them start doing the smart home stuff better than they are right now. It's cool. Turn on lights, turn on the TV. I don't know what the next thing is. I think it even like door locks and stuff. I guess the problem is that for it to become really popular, the price has got to come down. And I think it's got to be even easier to set up in the most Apple way possible. Like right now it's good, but like I think they could get better. But yeah, the more we can integrate with that stuff, like coming home and the door just unlocking and the garage opening, that's Jetsons. Like that's cool.
I mean, I think this is the reason why people like Apple and the Apple ecosystem so much. If you have an iPhone and an iPad and like a Mac, they all seamlessly integrate. It Absolutely. Really works. And if you have like AirPods, it works so smooth. My AirPods work on my Android phone. Not as smooth, no battery indicator. There's like an app that kind of does it, but it ended up just being bad. So
on that same note, I remember I had an iPhone for a long time with my Mac. I knew that for like the next year I was going to be working on Android. So I decided to go ahead and get an Android phone. You kind of did the same thing. It just kind of seems like the thing to do. I don't know if I would do it again, but that's what I did. And I remember as soon as I did that, the one thing that I missed the most was that I wasn't getting my messages on my Mac anymore. It's like my favorite thing is just replying to it. Like there's something so satisfying about responding to a text with a full keyboard. I don't know what it is. I hate this. I don't like this, but like responding on a keyboard is so satisfying. Mm-hmm. And so I went out of my way to figure out, by the way, if you didn't know you could do this, you can. There's a way to like, you're not hacking it, but it sort of feels like it. You're sort of hacking the Messages app on Mac to work with Android. And you'll receive those text messages. It just routes them through some other server or something. But I went like out of my way to make that happen. And the funny thing is like, that's because I got rid of Apple. That seamless integration that's just built into Apple. That's the value proposition. That's why people want it. Mm-hmm. And I guess if you don't have the whole Apple ecosystem, you don't have a Mac, you don't have all the HomeKit accessories, CarPlay, like, maybe Apple's not as appealing to you, but man, like if you do have a Mac and you've ever just experienced your calendar syncing up seamlessly, and like these are things that you don't have to do anything to get them working. They just work Siri works out of the box. Calendar is synced out of the box. Messages are synced out of the box.
Yeah.
Even, I think it's so cool when I've got a tab open on Safari on my Mac.
Oh, yeah.
Go to your phone, bing, just pull it right up.
Yeah.
Don't use it that often, but when I do, it's just like super sweet.
Chrome does that.
Do they? With Android? Or just in general?
Just Chrome in general. So if I have Chrome open, because you can log into Chrome.
Oh, right.
So if you're logged in, you can view something, like if you're viewing it on your phone, you can view it on your desktop or whatever, or vice versa. So, but that's an app. That's a separate app, which does also happen to be Google. So that's fine. But so again, some of these features, still, I think I still run into more pain points with Android than if you live in that ecosystem.
Yeah. Speaking of browsers with Chrome, one of the other new things that Apple announced is that you will be able to select default apps like Android. I think that's a pain point for iOS users that Android resolved a long time ago, is like whenever you want to open up an email from the browser or from an app or something, it asks you what app you want to use. They're now going to be doing that for email and browser, so you could have Chrome potentially be the default app that opens up.
Oh, yeah, that was kind of annoying because I still used. I didn't understand what the default apps was. Yeah, I used Chrome. Like when I had an iPhone, I used Chrome as my default browser, like my personal browser.
Can I ask you why? Like what made you not want to use Safari?
I think it was probably just habit, because
just comfortable.
Yeah, well, just because I've been using Chrome since the browser wars of early 2000s.
Yeah.
I guess like I used to use Firefox, and then I forget why I switched over to Chrome. I think it was just, it seemed more like sleek at the time. I think they were the first ones to have tabs. And so then so then I could be wrong on that, and then I think it just became habit. Oh, I just use Chrome,
I had a guy at work ask me, because I said I used Chrome as well. I didn't use it on my phone. I just use Safari just because it seems like it's built into iOS really well. But he asked me why I use Chrome. And I didn't really have a good answer either. I was just like, that's just what I've used. I don't know. And the other thing is, I said, as a developer too, it seems like Chrome has the best dev tools. So, and then he was like, well, that's really not true. Like, not only does Safari have all of the same dev tools as Chrome, it's got every feature that Chrome has and more. And by the way, it's super battery efficient. And he said like significantly more efficient.
That is the thing I've heard more recently, is that Chrome like is like a battery hog, memory hog.
Yeah. And it's true. Like I can, and this computer that I have right here, this is an older one. This is my 2013. I do think it's a really solid computer, but he was saying like switch to Safari and you might get like an hour more battery life out of your computer. Totally true. It absolutely does. If you don't open Chrome and you use Safari, way more efficient. That probably has something to do with the whole software hardware integration that Apple has. I'm sure.
Could be. Yeah, could be. Yeah.
That's just like, that's the coolest thing. Like I love that. I guess that's the one thing too. I don't want to keep dwelling on Android versus iOS, but that's one thing that I love about iOS is that, like every good software engineer will say, those that care about software will create their own hardware. Bottom line, if you've got control of both, that is really, really important. That's really that's going to allow you to create and make decisions.
That's why, again, this was in that Steve Jobs book. That's why the iPod was so good.
Yeah,
because of iTunes.
Yeah,
that's what they said, because originally they were just making the hardware. They weren't the first people to make MP3s. Everyone knows that.
Yeah,
right. Maybe they were the first one to make one that big, like 1,000 songs. Obviously, they're marketing 1,000 songs in your pocket, but it didn't work seamlessly. So they were looking for third-party options. I think they were having another team build it, like whatever the iTunes would have been, or they were going to rely on another company. And they, like Steve Jobs or the team or whatever, just said, this is all garbage. Like, let's just build it ourselves.
One thing he would be super proud of, it segues real nicely, is the Apple Silicon.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm interested in this. Yeah,
I think that this seems like the Steve Jobs thing to do, is to get closer and closer to a point where you guys create everything in the computer. And so for those that don't know about Apple Silicon, they basically just announced that they're going to be creating their own processors for their computers, which they've been doing on iPhone for a long time, but they haven't been doing it in their Macs. They've been using Intel processors and AMD GPUs as of recently. They had NVIDIA before. They had some falling out with NVIDIA. I'm not sure what happened there, but But lately they're using AMD GPUs and Intel CPUs, and they want to go to their own silicon. And I heard a guy after that was announced at WWDC that was complaining all about it and just saying like all these reasons. Its main reason for why it's a bad idea just makes me laugh. I'd be like out loud, because he says the one thing that sucks the most about them going to Apple Silicon is they will probably remove Boot Camp, which is the ability to boot Windows on your Mac. Understand how ridiculous you sound.
Yeah.
They're gonna. You're saying that they should make decisions in their hardware for Windows.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, like that. Yeah. So yeah, that seems ridiculous for two reasons. One, the probably. So it was
complete speculation.
Complete speculation. Yeah, and two, like I understand that is a cool feature that I rarely use. I do.
Yeah.
Like when I was a student, I dual boot because I bought a Mac with my student loan money, but we like the work we were doing was 100%. It was 100% Windows. So I was dual booting. I'm a programmer. We're already a small percentage of the population. My mom isn't going to be dual booting on her Mac. So like most of the customers, my feeling, I don't know the stats on this, but most of the customers aren't dual booting anyway.
Yeah.
It is a cool feature that you're speculating might not be there, but
the one thing that we get from Apple Silicon that I cannot imagine almost any Mac user saying that the Boot Camp outweighs this is that it will have native support for iOS and iPad apps on the new Mac. They announced that. That is not speculation. That is for sure.
That is so cool.
That is awesome. You'll be able to natively have access to the iPhone App Store and run iPhone apps on the Mac. Hands down, that is better than having Windows dual boot capability on a Mac.
What does that mean for developers too? Actually, like when you told me about that, I didn't think about that either. That means that I guess with iOS 13, you could already build for a Mac. No.
Oh well, you could convert iPad apps to Mac apps.
Yeah,
is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. So like I thought that was kind of cool, but like with this, there's no conversion. It is the app, right? Like maybe you're building for that specific device. That to me, that is so cool. So like you can reach, you're building a different app. I don't know how I want to say it. I'm just excited. It's going to be a different audience. It's going to be a different experience, just like phone versus iPad. But like you can offer that same exact experience like differently without building, because right now you have to build a separate app. And then is it going to integrate with the TV OS? Those are still different.
Yeah. I bet Apple, I actually don't know the answer to that. Do they make their own processors inside there? Probably. If they make them for iPhone, they probably do.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I could look it up, but it probably is just the Apple processor.
Yeah. One thing, this is a feature request for a feature that hasn't even been released yet, but I think, here's one thing I see Apple doing. I think this would be so freaking cool. Can you imagine if you were on your iPhone, you've got an app open, you open up your MacBook, and it's like, boom. You could just, you can resume state on that app on your Mac. Dude, that would be so cool.
So yeah, this is going back to that guy's speculation or whatever, and I was saying like I don't know the numbers, but the number of people who dual boot is going to be very small. But the number of people who have iPhones and would probably want this feature is going to be very big. Like I really think maybe I'd get an iPhone again.
Yeah, well, and the cool thing is
really
like,
cool.
Here's what Apple might even do. This might even be I didn't even think about this until now. This might be a unique little marketing strategy. What if you're a Mac user, but you're not an iPhone user? This applies to you and to probably a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Imagine if they're like, okay, cool. Hey, you got a Mac now? Hey, here's the App Store. This is what we offer on iOS. And now you're kind of getting brought into that whole ecosystem, and maybe that's going to get you to want an iPhone. You've got access to all these apps that you maybe don't have access to on an Android phone. Or, like I said, if they get smart and they have some seamless integration between the two, then that might be one of those things that you're like, dang, I wish that I could automatically switch to the other one.
And this is again, this is now my speculation, but I'm guessing it's gonna be more performant. Like we already talked about that, like the integration, like the whole reason that Apple Metal, their game library, like their game engine library thing, the whole reason that is more performant is because they have instructions that target their specific their specific GPU. They know the hardware all because they build it or whatever. They built the library for their hardware. So now they're building their operating system for their processors, and they can have specific instructions. Like they get to generate whatever the instructions are, and like how to access it and what layers there are to access it, right? So,
and it just seems like an appropriate segue in that light, because they're already in the business of making processors. They're already in the business of making GPUs for their iPhones, and it works insanely well for their iPhones for that same reason that you're talking about right now. Why would you not bring that over to the Mac? That seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And another thing that I don't like that guy was saying is that he said, well, this is undoubtedly going to raise the price of a Mac. I'm just thinking, like, why would you say that? That doesn't even make sense to me. If anything, if a company that I was buying a product from was forced to buy parts of their hardware from another company, and that company kind of like, I don't like that just doesn't.
So again, he's speculating, he's guessing, right? Because what's the it could, but I wouldn't say undoubtedly, right? What's the reason that they want to build their own hardware? Maybe for design, right? Like because they think that they can get better performance and maybe make the device worth it more.
And they almost certainly can.
Yes. Or they think that they can do it for cheaper.
Right.
Like that's one of the things. Like, and that's what you're saying. Maybe AMD and Apple, or AMD and Intel, like they're going to charge a certain price no matter what, and that's just a cost that Apple has to pay. And they're saying, I'm tired of that. Like, I know it doesn't cost that much.
And if you're as big as Apple, why would you not do this? You're way bigger than Intel. Why not just do what they do? I don't know. I mean, it's like it's a capitalist society that we live in. Apple wants to get the prices down, get the performance of their products up. I can guarantee you that Apple is not doing this thinking that it's going to hurt them. It's only going to make their products better, and that's what they're in the business of doing.
Yeah.
Let them do it. I'm sure Apple gets really frustrated at all of the third parties that they have to deal with. Like for their phones, for a long time, they were dealing with Samsung, and they might still be, but I don't know if it's confirmed yet, but there was at least speculation that they were having a tiff with Samsung about the new iPhone 12 displays, and that they were going to go to LG. And I'm just like, how frustrating would that be? To be Apple trying to release this new phone. It might even be delayed because of this negotiation. So these people, if Samsung was just like, hey, we don't want to do business with you tomorrow, that's a disaster. Same thing with Intel. Like, what if they just didn't want to make processors for them anymore? Now they're scrambling to come up with a new game plan.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they would want to do that. I'm sure Samsung and Intel make a ton of money from Apple, but there's no doubt that anytime a company has to deal with third parties, it's like...
Well, and if you're locked into that situation, what if Intel decides to raise the price? They say, well, we know that you're locked in.
Oh, yeah.
We're the only game in town for this. And which is actually, maybe that's what happened. Maybe that's what happened. You said they switched their GPUs from NVIDIA to AMD. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's something that they tried to do.
Yeah, probably. If I was Apple, no way. I'm not going to be held back by anybody, especially not if we're already in the business. And think about this too. Apple has a ton of genius silicon developers already that work on the CPUs and GPUs for iPhones.
Yeah.
These guys have some insane ideas, some really good ideas, I'm sure, and they're probably just begging them, let us take this over as well.
We can make this better. We can make this better.
Yeah. And I love that spirit. Like, dude, get after it. If you guys are these, you're these software engineers, or these not hardware and software engineers, you've got these really good ideas. You guys you've already mastered the mobile processor. There's nobody that comes close. Like, they've mastered the ability to keep thermals under control, battery, and I don't know. I don't like this sentiment from this guy or anybody else that this is like the wrong move from Apple's part. Like, I'm not an Apple maybe I am an Apple fanboy, but I'm trying to be objective and unbiased here, and this just all around seems like the right move. It doesn't seem like there's any reason not to do this. So with that being said, that's kind of the whole silicon debate. But a couple of the software features that are really cool in the new iOS that are kind of in line with that Android thing, and I kind of want to talk to you about this a little bit, because this is the other thing that this guy that we were just talking about and a lot of other people, like we said earlier in this episode, they're complaining that this is a lot like Android. And so the three that come in mind for sure is the app library, the app clips, which are like instant apps on Android, and the widgets. And I don't know, for me as an iOS user, I'm not disappointed by the fact that they're doing this. It's like, yeah, I wish they would have done it sooner, but like that's the only thing that you can complain about. Like, yeah, are you really going to make an argument that this was a bad WWDC because they released features that Android already had? That doesn't make sense to me.
And from what I've seen, obviously I haven't used it. The widgets seem better. They seem cleaner.
Oh yeah.
It seems like just integrated better. I don't like how the widgets look on Android, so I don't use them. Right? But like at least for the demos that I saw, it still just looks clean. It looks nice.
And what Apple will for sure do is with all of the developers that make widgets, they're going to make sure that they conform to this similar looking style. They're going to make sure that everything about it, looks like everything else on the home screen. And as an iOS user, I like that. Like I remember when I had an Android phone, I had a Note. It had widgets. Some of them were cool, but you end up with this home screen or set of home screens that like just looks clunky because this one has this different style. This one has this different style. I think Apple's going for this look where basically you've got your individual like square or rounded corner app icons, and then you've got widgets that are essentially the same like silhouette, but they take up just more rows. I think it looks really cool. Like it looks really awesome.
I think the reason it looks clean is because like Apple does have that like enforcement of the design guidelines. Yeah. One of the things so Google doesn't have that. So you can have an app with square corners, like sharp edges. You can have an app icon with rounded corners. You can have like the see-through or whatever, like transparent icon. Yeah. And so it just, to me, it ends up looking messy.
Yeah, and there's some that'll make the argument that like I want to control that. I want to be able to control what my home screen looks like. And hey, like that's the cool thing about this. You pick, you decide. Nobody's making you have an iPhone or an Android phone. I like the seamless look. There's some people that don't like it. There's some people that don't like the way that iOS looks. They don't like the look that Apple's going for. It's fine. To each their own. There's chocolate and vanilla. I like it. I think it looks cool. I'm kind of in the boat of people as a consumer, not as a software developer, but as a consumer, I'm kind of in the boat that I want my software to just be easy. I want to come in and I want it to just almost walk me through the process of what I want to do. I just want it to all look the same. I don't want to be searching for something. I don't want to deal with different looking things that are hard to find. Just make it easy, make it simple. That's what Apple does. It's obviously really popular. Obviously people like it. So I guess they took this thing that Android did and they made it in my opinion, better.
In my opinion, too.
But the one thing that they did do that undoubtedly is better is this Smart Stack widget. You kind of were talking about this earlier. I'll let you kind of talk about it for a second. But I just think it's cool because it's typical Apple to take something that was maybe already done. That's fine. But they're going to add their little twist. They're going to make it unique, you know.
So the Smart Stacks, as far as I can tell, it's two things. One, I think it looks better because... So what the Smart Stack does is you're allowed to have basically multiple widgets on top of each other. Mm-hmm. That's at least just like the stack aspect of it. I don't think you can do that in Android right now. And I think part of it is because even in Android, if they take up the same amount of squares, like they have, some of them will have like transparent backgrounds. Like they want to like be transparent so you can see your back image. It looks like the widgets here don't do that. So it's like like you said, they look like a full-on app, like a full-on app icon. So you're giving up this chunk, however, like whatever size you want. You're giving up this chunk of your screen, but now like you can put, instead of having all of your widgets separately, you can put them all in like anything that's that same size, like 4x2 or whatever. You can put them all together, and then you can swipe through those, which also feels really clean. So I might want like 7 widgets, so like instant access to that data, whatever the widget provides, but I don't have to have 7 different screens or have like a whole like desktop, whatever they call it, like with all those widgets.
The cool thing about it too is that being that they call it the Smart Stack, it intelligently predicts what you're going to want to use when you come back to your phone.
Yeah.
So if you're likely to look at the weather in the morning, it's going to have the weather there. And then if you're likely to listen to a podcast later that day, it's going to have the podcast widget. So that's really cool.
So that was the second thing, is like it will know if you're checking the news or the weather in the morning. It will know if you're checking like traffic when you're going home, or like checking your like fitness app at the end of the day. Like it will pop up there as well.
And
that's so cool.
This is the type of software that I was just talking about that I like them working towards this. Let me open up my phone, make this really easy what I'm looking for, and let me get out of this. Like, I just want to get the thing done that I'm trying to do and then be done. And that's what they're going for. And not only do they do this sort of thing with that new Smart Stack widget, but they're also doing this with your app library. And they're going to have a section up at the top that predicts what app that you want to use next too. I think this is cool. And they even mentioned, the thing that I like about this even more, this is more Apple-esque than Google-esque, I guess, is that prediction is local to your phone. They're trying to get a lot more of this stuff local to your phone. And I think that's cool. Like, it's like, yeah, I don't need this information on an Apple server somewhere. If Apple was a data company, they would do that. But they're like, hey, there's no need for us to do that.
Yeah. So it is interesting, like the comparing and contrasting Apple with some of these big tech companies. One of the things that like Facebook and Twitter do, they give you that dopamine rush. They want your eyeballs in the app like constantly, because that's how they get their money, right? Apple already has your money.
Yeah,
like, you bought the phone, so they are interested at least in a seamless experience. They don't care if you hold your phone all day long, or if you put it in a drawer and never touch it again. You already bought it. Yeah. So it's like, that is, again, like, I don't know if we can 100% trust them, like, with their privacy, like, but it seems like that's the way they're going.
Yeah. They also do the same thing with the translation aspect of iOS 14, where they also are doing that locally. And this shocks me that this is like a controversy, that they're doing the translation locally on the device instead of offloading that to a server, which is what they used to do. And people are like, it's like people will find...
What's the controversy?
Right? Like, if you don't know why, like, whenever I heard this, I'm thinking the same thing. What in the world would you not like about that? Like, if they can do it... I mean, this is like pretty common too in the software world in general. We do this when we work on apps. Like, anything that we can do on the front end, like, do it there. It's more private for the user. It's for sure faster. I mean, if the phone can just do the computation, like, that's way better. Okay, so the controversy is that they'll find anything to complain about. I'm sure that Apple, I know I'm like waiting to say it. I'm building the suspense here. But I'm sure that Apple's not going to release a feature into the market that's not tested and works really well.
Yeah.
The controversy is that people are saying, well, if you put it on a server, it would be updated more often. It would be like updated in real time. And I want the most accurate translation, not the fastest translation. And I'm like, okay,
I got a whole bunch of problems, or at least one big problem with that.
Okay, you go ahead. You go first.
So, I mean, obviously, right from the start, as quickly as they're updating the server with new translations, they can update apps. And so you can get an update to that app. So it's very unlikely, like, how much of my day is going to be ruined because I'm chatting. And I mean, my wife is Korean, my mother-in-law is Korean, so like I do translation stuff, and especially when I was learning, I did this a lot. But like I did it with a book. They didn't have apps. I would carry around books and stuff. But like, is it going to update in the middle of this conversation? So it's like I type one thing and then secretly there was an update like behind the scenes, and then I do my next sentence and like there was actually a more accurate translation that just got updated. Like, that doesn't seem...
Yeah, I've got two problems with this. One, language doesn't really change. I mean, honestly, like, if Spanish to English is Spanish to English, English to Spanish is English to Spanish.
Well,
like,
you could say slang. But
sure. There might be new slang words that come around every once in a while. iOS is updated all the time. Really? Like, if there's some new slang word, it'll be out in 3 days. Mm-hmm. Like, they'll release an update for sure, especially if it's really important. And the other thing is, I feel like a huge application for this feature is traveling abroad. And I've done this. Mm-hmm. You'll go a lot of places that there is no cell phone reception. How nice is it that my phone still can translate this for me in the middle of nowhere in some foreign country?
Yeah.
I mean, also, like, this is, I don't imagine that this is the main use of it, but like, imagine if you were in some stressful situation where, I don't know, you were in some foreign country and like you needed to get something explained to somebody. No problem. It's not on a server anymore. It's just right on your phone.
on your phone.
I think that's so cool.
That's way more convenient.
And the likelihood is that you're going to be able to translate just fine. It's not going to change. Like, I mean, they might add more vocabulary, whatever. But
I just don't see the argument for it. Like,
yeah,
your app can update like a section or whatever. I don't know how they're going to build it into their OS, but like whatever that section of their OS is, they can update it, and it can update behind the scenes like apps already do, unless you turn it off. What's the problem?
Can you imagine anybody making this argument for any other app? It wouldn't even make any sense. If you were like, "Oh, I don't want to download this app because I just want it to work right now. I don't want updates," or like, what?
Yeah.
Apps update all the time. Like, that's
update.
super normal. The only difference, I guess, is that, yes, you're correct. Maybe the cool thing about having it on a server is that they could update it like that, and the next time you translate, you're going to get that update. But like,
I don't think that's realistic either. I mean, like you would do it. I agree with that, but I don't think it's going to be changed so much that it's going to affect. Like, it's not going to be some weird, nuanced word.
Yeah.
Like I said, I did this. Like. I just don't think the more of the issue that you're going to have is, well, I guess if the translation software sucked, but still, like,
it's Apple. I doubt it's going to suck.
Well, I mean, you could say that same thing about Google. The Google Translate sucked for a while.
That's fair. Yeah, and their Apple Maps sucked for a long time.
Yeah. So we don't know, but I still don't. I don't see it by sending it to a server. I don't see why that's. I just don't see why that's controversial.
Yeah,
like it will still be updated.
It's controversial because Apple did it.
People like to be controversial.
Bottom line, I mean, I don't know if you're gonna look at new. This is like what I'm saying. Like I said, I like Apple more, but in general, like if Apple comes out with some new technology, like if there's not a place in the market for it, they're probably not going to do it, and it'll be rejected if that is the case. But I imagine this is one of those features that's going to do really well. People are really going to like it. I think people just want something to complain about a lot of times. I can't imagine how all of this smart prediction and all of this translation going locally to the device seems like all around better for the user. Again, the only thing is that maybe they can get updates to a server quicker than they can get it to your phone. But, I mean, these days, iOS updates automatically at night.
Yeah. It just doesn't seem like a...
Whatever.
Doesn't seem like an issue.
Now, I want to talk. This is kind of one of the last things that we have on the list of WWDC features. I want to talk about something I don't like that Apple did, and I will get behind this.
Okay.
I don't like app clips. I think that this is not a good idea. It failed miserably on an Android.
I didn't even know this was a thing on Android.
Yeah. And for those that don't know, an instant app is a thing. To call it an instant app is almost ridiculous because it's still an app. It's still built using the same framework that any other app is built in. You're still going to build it in Xcode like any other app if it's an iOS app. The only really stipulation is that it has to be 10 megabytes or less. A 10 megabyte file, depending on your network connection, is not instant at all. Not at all. Yeah. I mean, imagine if you're on it's not uncommon for maybe to be on 100K connection, or even if you're on a 300K connection, this is going to take a long time. Like a 10 megabyte app on a 100K connection is going to take 100 seconds. That's not instant. Is my math right? Do I sound like an idiot?
I don't know. You're usually pretty good at math, so I just
would actually no. My math is correct. If you had a 100 kilobyte connection, and I get it, some people are going to say that's slow. You're being dramatic, but I really don't think it's all that unreasonable. Plus, we are spoiled here in the United States. Our 5G, 4G, it all tends to be really, really quick. That's not the case in other countries, and Apple's a global platform.
Yeah. So but first of all, so I'm going to push back on your arguments a little bit.
All right.
First of all, companies don't have to do this. So like in the Philippines where they have lower internet connections, for example, if that's the case, maybe companies just don't use it over there. That's fine. Also, my feeling is, again, hopefully it depends on the app, but hopefully it is more just like a quick pay advertisement, or but like a quick pay something. So not everybody, just because there's that 10 megabyte limit, not everyone is going to want to push up to that limit. It might actually be relatively small.
Sure.
So
I don't know what the minimum size is, but
yeah.
Like if you just export a almost blank iOS project. I don't know what the...
Yeah, I don't know.
But okay, so yeah, playing devil's advocate with myself, the thing that I think one of the demos in WWDC that seems like a really good application for this is with the like electric scooter craze that's going on right now, where like all these cities have these electric scooters. So the idea is that you could just walk up to the scooter, scan a QR code, get an instant app. Well, I'll come back to. I think it's misleading to tell people that like this behaves more like a website that doesn't occupy space on your phone. That's misleading. It absolutely does. The thing that makes
is that 10 megabytes or whatever still really just sitting on your phone?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, it's a piece of software. It's got to run. Yeah, it's going to pull from disk, throw it in RAM. It's going to work like anything else. So yeah, that's a little disingenuous to me, a little bit misleading. I don't like how they're pitching it as something that doesn't occupy space. I think the way that they're going to get around this problem is that instant apps will be lower prioritized as far as storage goes on your phone. So if you're trying to take a picture, it'll delete that. I'm sure they'll do something like that.
Will it save on your computer or like on your phone? Because reasonably it could download and execute all in RAM, and then once you close the app, it just closes.
That is a good point, but I don't think that's what this is doing, because I seem to remember somebody saying something about how instant apps would be automatically offloaded after a certain time frame of not using them. Okay. So after 30 or 60 days, obviously it's not going to stay in RAM for 30 or 60 days. But yeah, I mean, that's a good point, though. I actually could get behind that.
It could, again, like 60 days, 30 to 60 days could be like the upper limit. Like, imagine if somebody never shut off their computer. Because, like, I'm sure if you, like, what do you, like, double-click your home screen and you get those recently activated apps. Mm-hmm. So, like, if it doesn't actually download itself onto the hard drive and have it be available on your desktop, it could be sitting in RAM.
That's true.
I used to have this is what I was saying about Safari, because I use Chrome, but every now and then, like if I'm on Twitter and I click like a link or something, it automatically opens up in Safari. And so every time I would do that, I'd realize like I have like 60 tabs open in Safari, because those weren't all in RAM, but it saves those, right? And I just didn't use it. So it could be that. Yeah, I get.
It could be. I hope I'm wrong about this, but I don't think that's what's happening. Yeah. But I hope I'm wrong about that. So yeah, I mean, I guess for that it's a good idea. But one thing that the guy that we were saying that he was talking about Apple Silicon and seemed unfair, he said about app clips, and I kind of agree with him on this one, is that the idea is that you're going to mostly get it from like QR code or maybe NFC. Mm-hmm. And the problem is that then everybody's going to want an instant app for everything. And the more we don't universalize this platform, the more we're going to have like these codes everywhere. And I don't know if that's a good solution either. Basically what he proposed, this isn't Apple-esque, but he said they need to come up with some standardized way of doing this that everyone can use, like Bluetooth or NFC or something like that.
Or USB. I mean, like...
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess this would have to be wireless, though.
Yeah, well,
I see what you're saying.
But like,
correct,
it is a standard. It is a standard. Even though Apple went and switched everything up by doing USB-C. Yeah. Like, it's better. But it is at least a standard.
Yeah, so I do like that, but we have to be realistic. Apple ain't doing that. Apple's not in the business of making things easy for Google or any other company. Like, Apple's all about them, and it is what it is. I mean, that's part of what makes Apple so great, is that they are unapologetically selfish and they want to advance their own company. But I don't even like calling it selfish. That's just what companies do. Like, that's the business model. Like,
yeah. If it becomes profitable to build something specifically for me, that's what I'm going to do. If it becomes profitable to build something that also works for other people, like maybe that's what they'll do.
Yeah. Right? I don't know.
That's not everybody, obviously.
Yeah. This idea, just this one in particular, is just all around, whether it's the is that a word? The universality of it all.
Universality?
Universality? Yeah.
Maybe.
Anyways, that part is, that is what it is. There's going to be maybe codes everywhere. That's fine. But just the idea in and of itself doesn't seem good. And there's another reason why. Let me pitch my idea here, and you can play devil's advocate with me if you think that I'm wrong. I think that ultimately this idea could hurt businesses. And like you said, businesses don't have to do it. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, the goal is to get users engaged with your app, spending time there, doing what it is that you want them to do. And I can't really get my head around why it would be better to have this super lightweight app that is very limited in functionality, and it kind of overall takes away from the user experience. I mean, don't get me wrong, like I can see how it could be cool. Like the one example that does make a lot of sense to me is like the scooter app thing. It is annoying that if you've ever used one of those, by the way, I went to Austin like a year ago and we rode those things around everywhere. We had a blast. Mm-hmm. Those things are so fun. And they're fast. I think they nerfed them actually, because I remember me and my buddy thinking these things are quick. Somebody's going to get hurt. Yeah, I like that idea because I hated having this app on my phone. And actually, the thing is, too, there's a bunch of different scooter companies. There might be like 3 or 4 in any given city. So it's like really annoying to have like 4 different apps to pick up each kind of scooter or whatever. Like, so for that application, I think it makes sense. But it almost seems like then an app clip is a type of app for a certain business model, and it's not for the majority of businesses. I think the majority of businesses are better off having a full-size application. If you're getting a user in there, you can keep them more engaged. You can send them notifications. You can do all sorts of stuff to keep them.
You can have a user profile. So like Starbucks, like maybe that makes sense directly for paying, but like Starbucks and what do I use? I have a Coffee Bean app. Every time I go and I get coffee, I scan it and I get points. It's because they want me to use that app, because then they can send me notifications or send me like ads on like the home screen or whatever. So it's like if you have that lightweight app and I don't know, like I wouldn't be engaging with them.
Yeah. You didn't play devil's advocate. It seems like you agree with me, which is okay. I just think it.
I mean, I think I did about the RAM stuff.
That is, if that's correct.
Yeah, I'm just guessing there.
Yeah. I don't know. To me, it just seems like it's cool. I don't know. To me, I don't take this away from WWDC as some big thing. And plus, I feel like it's only fair to find one thing to rag on Apple about.
Yeah. I don't think I would use it. I mean,
I don't think I would either.
I didn't know that instant apps was a thing on Android. I mean, I'm not like a super Android fanboy either. When did I update my phone? I forget. I've had this one for a couple of months. I just didn't know this thing existed.
I mean, that's the point though, is like it wasn't successful on Android. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, maybe it feels like Apple's grabbing at straws here. I don't know. It just doesn't seem. It also seems like the biggest direct rip from Android. Like, of all the other stuff, you could kind of wiggle around it. Like, oh, we did widgets. We've got this smart widget, and they're going to be different because they could do these things that, whatever. And the app library, it's our own design. This may have been something that was, it was coming no matter what. Like this, I don't know. It doesn't seem, you can't like say that that's an Android feature. They do that, but if it makes sense for iOS, they're just adding a new view to look at your apps. Yeah. But this particular thing does feel like you guys just looked at something that Android did that didn't work very well and just did it yourself. Now, to be fair, maybe their idea is that we're going to do it better or not better, but because it's on iOS, it will have a much better adoption rate.
Could be, yeah.
Maybe that's what it is. But I don't know. I think that puts us at about an hour, and that was a great conversation about WWDC.
Yeah. That's good.
Anyways.
And Steve Jobs. And big tech.
And Steve Jobs.
We did kind of roll into other topics there. That's fine.
So check us out on all of our platforms now. We're on Twitter. We said this last time. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.
We have a YouTube channel. That's where we post. You can search us up, CODESHO Podcast.
You can watch the podcast on a lot of different platforms. And we appreciate everybody coming back to watch us just sit here and do what we do. So anyways, thank you guys, and we will see you next week.
Have fun. I don't know why I said have fun.